Hello and welcome into another episode of the Sunbelt Syndicate. This is The Wrap with Dominick, Crosetto, and Marv Dickens here with you as always on a Sunday evening or Monday sometime if you're listening to this on the audio version. Thanks for checking us out and tuning in again. Brought to you by Don't Sleep Energy and Phenom Elite. Don't Sleep, found on Amazon. Phenom's actually found, again, in your local Dick's Sporting Goods now as well as online. So check both of them out. With you from the first kick to the last pitch. Marv, baseball wrapped up in time. We're here and we're ready to roll in good time tonight, right?
Yeah, we're here. Got home about an hour ago, and ready to talk some football after watching our baseball team get absolutely destroyed in the championship game a little while ago.
Oh,
dang.
Yeah. Never fun. Well,
our
favorite team
for a reason.
Yeah. Our favorite team didn't quite get destroyed, but did get rather outplayed until the last couple minutes. And I'm owning up on, and I told this to Marv on a bet I didn't quite make. G. Wills was on the preview show saying we got to put a bet together. But we never really did that. So I'm wearing the ODU racetrack logo shirt and the ODU, dark blue also to go with it, to kind of own up to something we never made official. But I would never typically wear a team that just beat my favorite team like a day or two after. But this is how I'll make it up for them, because they won fair and square. There's nothing dirty. There's no cheating. There's no bad calls that cost us the game. It just straight up didn't compete well enough until right at the very end, and it came up a little short, and we'll certainly get into that one. But any other news or tidbits before we get into the first game of, well, not the weekend, but the first game of the week that happened Thursday night?
No, just the sunbelt, as the conference slate goes on, there's some teams that have really separated themselves. There's some teams that have got to play really good down the stretch to even make it interesting. So excited to talk about all the games and kind of, where everybody stands and how it unfolded. And, man, we're getting down to the wire. 4 more weeks, four more conference games for most teams. And then we'll be heading to a championship game and some bowl games.
Yeah, we'll definitely be headed. And we know that some teams just qualified for those bowl games already this weekend, which is very cool for them. Not so great for others that suffered defeat in those games. But as Ben James says, Red Wolves now control their own destiny with the victory that they had over Georgia Southern. And also, not only is football getting closer to the end, closer to wrapping up and finding out who's going to play in postseason play, both in the Sunbelt Conference Championship as well as some bowl games. But we've got basketball right around the corner. We've got some fun stuff. Yeah. Fun stuff coming up with that. We've got some stuff on the website that's going to launch all week long. We've got some interviews going to come out with some big, important players on the basketball side of things. So we'll be rolling all of that out here shortly for you guys. But let's get into wrapping up this week's action. We had a Thursday night game down in Atlanta, Georgia. And look, both teams 1-6 coming in. Everyone goes, who's going to tune into this? I'll tell you what, one of the better, more fun games of the week to watch, as South Alabama won this one 38-31. Defense optional, but offense on full display. Marv, what did you see in this one on Thursday night?
I think you summed it up right. If you would have looked at the records coming into the game, it's like, man, why'd they put this one on a Thursday night? But the action that unfolded definitely made it worthwhile. We were texting on our text thread during the first quarter, like, hey, what is it going to be? 1st to 90 wins? Because that first quarter was electric, 35 points in the first quarter. But I honestly thought Georgia State was going to get their first win. 2 late turnovers kind of bite them in the butt there. But, South Alabama kept their foot on the gas and played the entire time. The big thing in this game was those 2 final turnovers. Tie game, South Alabama kicks a field goal with like 5 minutes left. They get a fumble at midfield, run the ball 5 straight times. Contrell Bullock gets his second touchdown of the game. I think they ran the ball 5 or 6 consecutive times after that fumble, and then get the late interception to seal the game. But, man, what a really good football game to put the Sunbelt on display. Once again, despite the records, that was a lot of fun to watch.
Yeah, and I'll say this. We've talked about the Cam Brown, TJ Finley situation at Georgia State. I mean, the kid goes 19 of 33, 241 yards, 4 touchdowns on the evening. He does have the 1 interception, but these are the kind of games where you grow, right? Like, yeah, you didn't win on the scoreboard, and it sucks to lose yet again, but this is the type of game that Brown needs to get into and go through as a young quarterback, right?
Yeah, I mean, he's been impressive the last couple of weeks coming in the App State game, and then last week and this week. He's the guy going forward. I don't think there's any quarterback controversy. The only time he should come off the field is if he's injured or if it's, wasted time in the fourth quarter where you're either way ahead or getting blown out. But, yeah, I mean, and also having a guy like Ted Hurst throw the ball too doesn't hurt. Ted has 5 catches for 110 yards and 2 touchdowns. But, yeah, he's their guy, in my opinion. And, Bishop Davenport, pretty efficient for South Alabama, 16 of 22 for 280 and 2 touchdowns. But yeah, once again, this game shootout in the first quarter kind of levels off in the second and third quarter, and those 2 late turnovers for Georgia State just killed them.
Yeah, and we do have to note that this one started in a kind of insane fashion with the kickoff here, as we'll see. South Alabama kicks the ball off to start the game. It hits the returner in the chest, bounces away. Usually you say not a big deal, right? But in that one, it wasn't great because he didn't get a chance to go grab it before it bounces out at the 2. So it was kind of foreshadowing. Should we say foreshadowing, Marv? That's kind of how the game started, kind of how the game ended.
As it begins, the ball. Yeah, as it begins, so shall it end. Yeah. Maybe not. I mean, listen, they put up 21 points in the first quarter. It's like, maybe not that bad, but yeah, that's a weird way to start a football game.
Yeah, I don't know if I've ever seen a start quite like that. I mean, I've seen some stuff where maybe they shouldn't return it, or actually, I've seen worse. Right? I don't remember which game it was. Maybe you do, or at least recognize the play I'm talking about. At one point I think it was last season, there was a kickoff that went down the field, and I guess one of the kids, the returners, thought it was just going to automatically be blown dead. But
he doesn't touch it. It's a live ball.
Yep. So they went down and recovered it. And I believe they recovered it in the end zone, and if not, they took it into the end zone or something. So that play was worse than this one because he was aware, he was trying to make the play, just kind of got unlucky, and then it, unfortunately for him, bounced out at the 2-yard line. So not the way you want to start a game, but like you said, 21 points was a decent rebound there.
Yeah, no, most definitely. Like I said, offense was completely on display in the first quarter. Did kind of stall out, but just a good football game from beginning to end, to be completely honest. And once again, not to be redundant, Cam Brown's the guy going forward in Atlanta. There's no question, no debate anymore.
Yeah, I'm with you. Got to go with that young guy and just keep him rolling. I know some of us have talked on and off about, well, you don't want to show too much because then he could be gone with the portal. Too bad, right? Like, if that happens, bring somebody else in and next man up. I mean, you just got to roll with it, right?
Well, the double-edged sword of that is the guy's proven himself, right? So if you take that approach, like, we don't want to show too much because he might be gone, then you got a guy that says, hey, I've earned this, and you took it away from me, and he could be gone anyways. So, hey, why you got him? You can't win the race with your fastest horse in the barn. So you got to let him go.
Yeah. Absolutely agree. About to get into the next game, but Ben James does want to let us know that Red Wolves won their first exhibition game in basketball today. A lot of that stuff's kind of done behind closed doors. They don't really sell tickets to that. A lot of these teams play, Marv, this stuff too, like D2 or like even D3 teams, just as like a tune-up, not really publicized much, although a lot of that stuff now with social media does come out, but, not technically something that the university or the team pushes a lot unless they win comfortably. We've seen some blowout games like 100 some points to 43 or something crazy, but that's kind of going on behind closed doors. And David Asbury says he loves the ODU shirt. Yep. Like I said, owning up to a bet we never made official, but I figure I'll do something. Your team beat mine, so we'll go with that.
In full transparency, I threatened to leave the podcast tonight until Dom explained that he lost a bet. So that's a bet. We'll let him wear it, even though the logo is cool. I will give ODU credit for that. That retro logo is really cool, but hate to see it on you, buddy.
I know. Well, I mean, I will say when I saw this in the store up there when I went to the game 2 years ago, the other one we lost in Norfolk. But yeah, I saw this, and they say this is the racetrack logo. This is what's known as the racetrack logo. This is the first time, as you can see in the picture here, the blue helmets with the white version of this. I have on the light blue, powder blue type color with the dark blue racetrack logo on it. I thought both were good looks. I like the two-tone blue look. Even when they're beating my team, I still like the look. But anyway, ODU does win this one for homecoming in Norfolk, 24-21. But Marv, let's be honest, this game probably wasn't as close as the score even indicated, right?
No, I mean, App gets 2 late touchdowns after making a quarterback change. Kind of in the story of App's season, right? Just turnovers in bad places have doomed them. It was back and forth and really close for a while. ODU kind of blew it open in the third quarter, but at those 2 interceptions on the ODU side of the field, which you just can't do. Couldn't really establish a running game. JJ didn't have a great game. Gets replaced by AJ, who comes in and looks like the guy that we saw in Charlotte against UNC Charlotte for a little while, and he kind of helps us get back in the game. Pull it to within a field goal with a little under 2 minutes and couldn't get the onside kick, but Colton Joseph had a great game, 21 for 35 for 305, 3 touchdowns, did throw a pick, but he led all rushers in the game with 64 yards. And you and I were kind of discussing App's play calling, just a lot of third and short, a lot of fourth and short, that they decided to throw the ball and roll JJ, who's not a mobile quarterback by any stretch of the imagination. You got a guy like Colton Joseph, you'll take that design all the time, but just seem to not do ourselves any favor, and credit to the ODU defense for stopping a lot of that, because App State's third down conversions were atrocious. The fourth down conversion was actually pretty good, but just could never really stay in a rhythm, and it shows on the time of possession. ODU dominated time of possession, 35 minutes to 25 minutes, just couldn't sustain drives, too many turnovers, and big game by Colton Joseph and Naheem Abdul Rahim Galading, which we've got to come up with a cool nickname, because saying all 4 of those names gets a little tedious at sometimes. But he just seemed to come up with every big catch in a third down situation they needed. He had 8 for 105 and a touchdown. And getting a little long-winded here, but not as close at all as the final score indicated. ODU dominated that game for the most part.
Yeah. Well, what's funny that you say his last name like that, because obviously it's a mouthful every time. The back of the jersey says A.R. Gladding.
Yeah.
There you go. Sold. I'm with that one. It's so much easier to come off the tongue when you're trying to get a name out quick, and then not necessarily for us. We have whatever time we want to allot to it, but when you're calling a game, like, can you imagine trying to spit out that last name every single time that he makes a play when he's catching 8 catches for 105 and a touchdown? Like, that's going to be tough.
Just call him ARG. We'll roll with that. I like it.
I like that. ARG. Okay. All right. There it is. ARG. I like that. It sounds cool too. Like tough name. I will say that, like, to me, watching the game, Joseph had a quietly fantastic game, if you ask me. I never was like, man, he's killing us. It was more of, all right, we've kind of slowed him up or stopped him here, but then he would kind of break the one play or get the catch. It was never like he was slicing and dicing all over. But then you see the stats at the end, you're like, he kind of was like 21 of 33, 305. Like, it was really impressive.
70 yards of that came on the one play, which was a well-designed play. I think it was a third and short play that they sent the running back out in motion. He comes to the line like he's going to run the ball, and this not a true jump pass, but stops. And it was either tight end or the running back was just wide open, 70-yard touchdown pass. It was just a really well-designed play at a great time in the game, where you can see the linebackers just sucked up thinking, this is what Colton Joseph does, right? He's elusive. They need a couple yards. He's going to get it. And just, really, really good play design. But you're right. It wasn't like he, old school, like Brett Favre, just drop back, go win the game. It was just death by 1,000 paper cuts. And he was precise when he needed to be. And he ran when he needed to. Once again, led all rushers. And you look at the stats at the end of the game, and good God, the guy had 370 yards of total offense. So, So while it maybe didn't feel like he dominated the game, statistically, he dominated the football game.
Yes, he did. And that running back was Contravion Hargrove, who went one catch for 70 yards. He is a running back, though. like you said, he went one rush for 1 yard as a running back, but he had a heck of a play as a wide receiver there in that one. So that's a pretty cool stat line if you want to come up with that. Defensively, though, they were playing really, really well, too. I got to give full credit to ODU's defense, making it tough for App State. We've seen App State move the ball and just not really get on the scoreboard much this year. Kind of similar in some facets, and then other times they just got completely shut down by that ODU defense. So I still thought ODU might come out and really dominate this game right as we looked at the start. They go up. I think it was 10-0 before App scored, right?
Yes, it was. Yeah, it was. And listen, they missed 3 field goals, right? So the game could have been a little bit more out of hand. And once again, 2 kind of late touchdown passes. AJ Swan comes in the game in the fourth quarter and was able to complete, 12 of 16 passes for 140 yards and 2 touchdowns. Just kind of really opened things up a little bit, but it was too little too late. The game was out of hand-ish, if you will. Once again, got it to within 3, had a chance for the onside kick, and just didn't go the way.
No, it did not, unfortunately for us, but fortunate for Monarch fans. So they get the win, back in the win column after 2 kind of struggling, surprising losses. I mean, I guess the JMU wasn't totally shocking. We knew that one was going to be pretty much a toss-up, but it didn't end up being a toss-up in that second half of that one. So they finally rebound and get that victory over App State, which was important because it was their homecoming. Southern Miss also went home to score 49 points against the Warhawks of ULM, but this one was back and forth till halftime. ULM scoring 21 points in this one, and I like this shot that we got here. The guy right in the middle of catching the ball. I think that is, let me see his name real quick. Tyshawn Chapman right there in the air trying to catch the ball. This one was caught for a touchdown to put USM up on top a little bit. I think it was 21-7 on this specific catch. But tell me more of what you're seeing through this game, Marv.
Braylon Braxton continues to be really good. 18 for 23 for 248 and 4 touchdowns. Listen, Southern Miss is undefeated in the sunbelt. Everyone else out west, I mean, Troy's also undefeated, and we'll kind of talk about them, who's going to win that, who's going to win the West. But 4-0 in conference, 6-2 overall, just playing really good football. Obviously, everyone knows what Braylon Braxton's capable of after last year at Marshall and now this year at Southern Miss. But you're right, it's 21-14 at halftime, and then they outscore the Warhawks 21-7 in the second half. ULM did have 3 turnovers and 11 penalties in the game. Kind of a trend, right? You turn the ball over and you have a bunch of penalties. It's really hard to win football games, especially on the road against really good football teams. And my big takeaway for ULM is they just got to get better at the quarterback position. They're just not efficient at all. Landon Graves, 12 for 16 for 103 yards, 1 touchdown, 2 picks. When you're playing from behind, your quarterback's got to play better than that.
Yeah, 12 for 26 actually.
12 for 26.
Not. Yeah. You might have just misread it when you saw it on your paper, but 12-26, 103. I will say, we do need to mention Armenta and Herring were out, right? So this wasn't Graves by choice necessarily. I think he's a sophomore quarterback, more of a thrower than a runner, which is really the opposite of what Herring and Armenta both bring. So you did see a different style of quarterback, which, could have been interesting to see if it had worked out, because possibly looking to pass a little bit more than just controlling the clock and running the ball as they have done throughout most of the season. I won't even just say the quarterback position by itself. They need to get a couple standout wide receivers. They've got some guys who can make some plays. Bibbs was the leading receiver, but Nick Trejo, number 7 there, is actually the leading receiver as far as how many catches he had.
Bibbs
with 4.
Bibbs had 1 catch for 34 yards. They just if you look at their long catches, 34, 15, and 14, just, no real deep threat down the floor. They ran the ball fairly well, 209 yards rushing. And if you look at statistically, like, take the 3 turnovers out of it, they were 9 for 16 on third down. I think a lot of teams would like to be over 50% on third downs, 1 for 1 on fourth down, and 209 rushing. But once again, the 11 penalties and the 3 turnovers. They also dominated time of possession, had it for 35 minutes. Just couldn't get the big play and couldn't put the ball in the end zone in the second half when they, were trying to keep pace with Southern Miss.
Yeah, just outmatched, like you said. Plain and simple, you want to break down the easiest way. It's like you stayed with them, you clawed hard in the first half, and then you just couldn't keep up in that second half, kind of like you said, plain and simply. What's funny is this game was also another one of those rainy games. It wasn't quite a monsoon or anything crazy, but the guy calling the game, and I forget which one it was, but he alludes to, he's like, oh, this is the kind of game that ULM is made for, right? It's a rainy game. You got the ball. You're going to run it. And I'm like, this guy must not have watched the Coastal Carolina ULM game a couple weeks ago where it was 23-8 and they lost in that type of weather. Now, I will say, I would have sided with him before that Coastal game, right? That's exactly the same thing I said when we saw what kind of weather we were going to get in that one. Keep the ball, clock control, run it down their throats. Defense can stop people. Coastal's offense wasn't doing very well at that point. It's the exact type of game that they should take advantage of. They didn't. And maybe that's why this one stayed close in the first half, because it is kind of the game they played a little bit more. But it is not going to work out well when you have as much talent as you have on the other side. Like you said, Braylon Braxton, to me, Colton Joseph was up there, and now you've got Barnett still up there. But Braylon Braxton right now, to me, is still the number one guy as far as a player of the year in the sunbelt at this point. And easy to see why when he's performed the way he did last year, and now he's pretty much doing it again with a whole nother team. But he's got a lot of weapons too. He does have a lot of weapons.
It helps having some familiarity with the guys around you and the coaching staff. Consistency is key in sports, and all they honestly did was they switched locations and jerseys.
Yeah. Matt Jones did have 12 carries, 42 yards, so nothing phenomenal. In fact, they didn't really do anything that stuck out crazy as far as wideouts or running backs are concerned. Braylon Braxton had kind of the really pop out game, right, with the 248 yards and 4 touchdowns, but nobody even hit the century mark for rushing or receiving. They just spread it around and got it done with a lot of different guys. Like I said, when you have that kind of assist around you as a quarterback, it's pretty easy to make the game go your way, and that's exactly what they did in that 49-21 victory there in Hattiesburg. All right, we are finally getting to Ben James's team, and he's been making some comments here, and I think some of them are unrelated to this game, so I'm not sure how much of it would translate. I'll try and read through them as we talk about this one, but they come back yet again. Arkansas State is making this a thing. The Red Wolves, and this one also, another rainy game here, right? Not a great game for a homecoming there in Jonesboro as far as the weather is concerned, but they get by Georgia Southern 34-24 in this one. Marv, what were you seeing out of the Red Wolves and Eagles?
Like you said, another comeback win. Down at halftime. I think they were down 21-10 at one point in the game, but Jalen Rayner, man, 216 yards passing and runs for 3 touchdowns, which is, it's what you need your quarterback to do when you're down, is kind of take control of the game. They were able to control the game on the ground. Like you said, the weather wasn't great, but they had 2 guys go over 100 yards running. Yeah, Spencer and Clay both for 100 yards. So Kenyon Clay, 17 touches, 124 yards and a touchdown. And then Spencer says, hey, it's pretty good, but maybe I can do a little bit better. 14 touches, 123 yards, didn't get into the end zone, but they were efficient on third down all night, 11 for 18. And once again, you need your quarterback to step up when you're down, especially at home. In a I'm not going to call it a must-win game, but we see what Troy and Southern Miss are doing on that side. Like, you've got to keep pace with them. You've got to have a chance. So he allowed them to do that. Arkansas State's the only team that wins while losing the turnover battle. Turned the ball over twice to Georgia Southern, didn't turn it all over at all. But we talked last week about, just the rash of penalties in the Sunbelt. This game did have 18 penalties for 185 yards in the game. But, yeah, Rayner is kind of the difference in the game, controlled the game on the ground, And J.C. French for Georgia Southern, 18 for 24 with 208 and 2 touchdowns, but just not enough at the end.
Yeah, it was kind of weird. Like it just felt like it was going to be Georgia Southern's game, like you said, being up early. I mean, you knew it wasn't over, but it just felt like, okay, it's not over, but Arkansas State could score, and Georgia Southern's probably going to score again, and that's what stopped happening, right? Georgia Southern only gets a field goal in that second half, but O.J. Arnold, 14 carries, 73 yards. I thought he had a pretty good game. Kept kind of noticing him making some plays. Didn't find the end zone, funny enough. French actually got there on the ground, and I still find it funny, like you said his stat line. Rayner goes 24 of 37, 216. Great. How many touchdowns did he have? 0, at least in the air. He had to get them all by rushing near the end zone, which is just kind of crazy, right? Like, he has this decent stat line, and then you get to touchdowns, 0. Interceptions, 1. His QBR is 53.4, which I always say throw that out the window, right? Because if he's getting 3 touchdowns on the ground, that would really help that. But that's more of the passing efficiency. So it's just kind of crazy to think, though, that you look at something like that and just wonder how he had such a successful game. But then you see how many times he gets in on the ground to know that is how they got all those points on their side. Just kind of crazy. We got Artie jumping in saying, hi, y'all. He's in here on a bye week for Texas
State. On a bye week. Yeah, welcome back, buddy. Yeah, one other thing I want to say about the Georgia Southern is, last week French was it over 100 yards rushing? And we were kind of making the joke like, hey, you're a pocket passer. What are you doing running? He had 18 running attempts in this game. Now, I didn't watch all the game. I don't know how many of those were scrambles that he had to get outside the pocket, but 18 carries is a lot for a guy that is not touted as a dual threat quarterback.
Yeah, I would say I watched a good amount of this one. I didn't watch every snap, but I watched the vast majority of this one. And there definitely was some design runs. And then, like you said, there was some times where you could tell he just knew to tuck and go, because he was getting the pocket to collapse in on him, which is, again, one reason they're scoring only 24 points. And I think with this rainy game, too, he's just like, screw it. I'm running with it because I can't stay back here, get sacked, and afford to take the loss. And I don't really blame him, like you said. I mean, he's got the ability to make plays with his feet, so it wasn't a bad option. Probably sees Rayner doing it on the other side and says, you know what, I can do this too. I think, in some respects, quarterbacks compete with each other like that, right? They don't ever go head to head on the field itself, but just watching each other say, well, I'm going to outdo you on my turn to do this, which doing that against Rayner is probably never a good idea. But I can understand the thought process, like, all right, I'm going to win it for my team if you're going to try and win it for yours. Ben James saying that Georgia Southern did have a player carted off. That's right. I think, if I'm not mistaken, that was the one that had an air cast put on before he left. There was at least one game this week where someone had an air cast kind of put on. I know
that was Isaiah Cummings for App State, had the air cast put on.
Yeah, okay. So he definitely had one. App State actually had one the week before go off in an air cast as well, an offensive lineman. And so we'll see what happens with that. The Cummings one looked bad. I don't think he's going to return this season from what I saw that play, but we will see.
Because he was having a phenomenal season.
I'd go as well. It's hard to say. Dominion's been really good too. But Cummings, you could argue, at least at this point in time, that he is the best player, or was the best player on the field for App State at that point. So we'll see what comes with that. G. Wills, hey, buddy, got the shirt on for you, right? This is the bet we didn't make. I'm just owning up to something to tell you I owe you one. The downfall of Southern over the last few years should be studied. It's kind of shocking. Where this team was, where they want to be, where they thought they could be, especially with Clay Helton, a returning quarterback. Yeah, it ain't working out for them. So App State, Georgia Southern often thought we're coming up from the FCS. We're good right away. We're going to stay that way. Doesn't look like it. So we'll have to see what happens with both of those programs being down in the East. And they got a matchup coming around here relatively soon. So
2 Thursday nights from now.
Yep. Yeah, we got 2 really good. Well, the first one's definitely going to be good. I don't know about this next one. We'll have to see if it plays out. But, we got this Marshall Coastal game on this Thursday, which is going to be a really good one. I think going to be a really good one. Ben's saying Applin got a rough return to Jonesboro, which, yes, he did. Marv, continue with your thoughts on that Thursday night matchup.
I had a little section of my notes here called Looking Ahead, and we already and we can touch on it. But yeah, the Marshall Coastal game I had written here. Can anyone keep pace with JMU? Obviously, we know that JMU's already beat ODU, but Marshall JMU's undefeated. They're 4-0 in conference. Like somebody's got to keep pace with them, or it's just going to be a runaway. So that is going to be an interesting Thursday night game. And then the following Thursday night, App versus Georgia Southern. It's like, does anybody want to go play in a bowl game? If you lose that one, it's going to be really tough. So yeah, whoever decided the matchups on ESPN, obviously you couldn't predict what Georgia State and South Alabama records were going to be, but you got a great game. You have some intriguing storylines for the next couple weeks at least.
Yeah, no, absolutely do. I mean, that's kind of, they don't call it a fun belt for no reason, right? There's still some stuff that is worth watching here. We did have the one 2 weeks ago that was a pretty rough watch on a Tuesday night with not a whole lot of great offense going on, and that one struggling to score. We didn't have that this Thursday, which was nice. We got something different. We got something more exciting, even between 2 1-6 teams. Shout out to TJ Corman for calling that one. He said, look, we don't have 2 great teams, but we could have one great game, and we did. And that was his prediction, and it worked out pretty well for what he said on the podcast last week. Okay, let's get into our last matchup of the weekend, the nightcap. I think this game finished last technically, but it was close between these last two, both starting at 7 o'clock. Troy Trojans with that old school throwback logo. I don't know how much people like that. I think it looks pretty cool, kind of the old school Trojan helmet with the TSU for Troy State, as they used to be known, especially back in the FCS days. They get the victory over the Cajuns, 35-23. Marv, this one, I don't know. I'm not necessarily surprised, but anything sticking out to you or anything surprise you by chance in this one?
No, I mean, I wasn't surprised by the outcome. The game was close. ULL kicks a field goal to go only down by 5 with 7 minutes to go. The problem was that the Cajuns were only able to muster 2 field goals in the second half. Listen, Troy is one of 3 teams that are now undefeated in the Sunbelt. You got James Madison, Troy, and Southern Miss. 2 guys with 2 rushing touchdowns. And ULL was just struggling at the quarterback position, kind of like ULM. Lunch Winfield was 12 for 22 for 187 yards. Threw 2 picks. He did run for 139 yards, kind of balancing it out. But they threw 3 TDs or 3 interceptions in the game. Don't want to sound like a broken record, but it's hard to win football games, especially in conference and on the road when you're turning the ball over 3 times. And now Troy and Southern Miss, they're going to battle for who's going to win the West.
Absolutely. R. Warren says he loved it as a resident Trojan fan, as he shares that one with 3 sword emojis. And Warren's always around. I got to do something. I've got Warren told me last week to check out a targeting call on the field. I've got stuff I'm working on in the background over a number of targeting calls in the Sunbelt. So I'll see if I can put a video together to put up on YouTube about some of the inconsistencies, not only in the Sunbelt officiating, but in NCAA officiating with how they're calling some of these plays, because it's either atrocious or just really inconsistent, and it's frustrating to watch. We just saw one in the App versus ODU game, and then to be fair to that, we had one in the ODU versus JMU game the week before as well. That was just, to me, absolutely big hits. Apparently now are just automatically considered targeting. And then it's like, oh, well, since technically they did touch helmets, we're going to call it targeting and kick these kids out of the game. I just don't agree with that. I thought they put something in that said helmet-to-helmet contact doesn't equate to targeting.
It's launching. It's going just – So not only the targeting, but penalties have been bad this year in the Sunbelt. I pointed that out a couple of times. But, man, the amount of time that each game is having with plays being reviewed seems just astronomical. Listen, I'm okay with slowing down the pace of play if you want to get things right, but I've watched several things this year, which you were kind of alluding to, where you took time out of the game, you slowed down the pace of the game, and still got it wrong, which is counterproductive to the point. So, once again, I get it. You want to look at everything. You want to make sure that the call is right. But if you're going to interrupt the pace of the game and still get it wrong, then what are we doing here?
One thing I think they can do that I'll immediately talk about, and Warren wants to say that the Troy's pick six put Louisiana away. Yes, they definitely put an exclamation point on it with that. But if they're going to review a play, and they say that they review every single play, right? Mm-hmm. They said every single play is reviewed, which I think is kind of egregious and overkill, or maybe it's the NFL who says that. But either way, they're reviewing every play that is needing to be reviewed for sure, right? They've already got the stuff going so that they can have it prepped and ready for the official when they do call him over. If you don't have a good view, which, let's be honest, a lot of our feeds are going to be ESPN plus feeds for the vast majority of the Sunbelt. We do not have a lot of great camera angles. If you know you don't have great camera angles and you don't have very conclusive evidence on the first 2-3 looks, don't bring the guy over. Just say there's not conclusive evidence, have him announce it. It doesn't matter if there's 2 or 3 people in a booth determining this, and then you're going to have some guy on the field come over and then have to secondarily watch all of those replays to see if he agrees that there's not a good. It's just ridiculous. Just don't waste everyone's time to do that. The only good thing about that is they get to show more ads and hopefully make more money. But I as a fan of the game, that's the worst thing, right? Like, I think the other week we had 2 or 3 almost back-to-back reviews on 2 or 3 consecutive plays. And it's just like, all right, this is why people leave games early.
I'll point this out. So 2 weeks ago, App State, Georgia State, with the punt that hit the App State player, that review took forever. They still got it wrong. That was Georgia State's football. You can't convince me otherwise. It clearly hits the App State player. He wasn't getting blocked into it, and they spent 5 minutes reviewing it just to get it wrong. And you're right. Where this is ESPN plus crews most of the time, you're not going to have. It's not the NFL. You don't have 12 different cameras pointing in every different direction where you can get the best view. Once you realize you don't have it, move on. I mean, there's nothing wrong with saying the ruling on the field stands and we just go back to playing football.
Yes. And I don't think it was this game, right? Because I said I watched the vast majority of the other game, which was on at the same time as this one. I tried to jump over to this one a few times, but there was a time when there was a spot being questioned, and they did have a camera kind of pointing down the line, looked like at the first down marker. They had this, it's at foot level or shin level at best, right? And they have this thing looking across the field, and the play happened on the far side of the field. It wasn't near the camera. And then they took this already not great picture and zoomed in. And everybody who's ever had a camera video footage, if you take that, it gets very grainy. And they blew this thing up on TV, and I'm like, you can't even tell, other than a white jersey and a dark jersey, what that is. You can't tell cleats, you can't tell socks, you can't tell gloves. So how the hell are you going to tell me you know where the football is in this play? So just don't waste our time, right, with that. I do want to get back to a couple notes on this. Kilchrist, again, better runner than he is a passer. Like you said, he's one of the 2 that got into the end zone twice, didn't get into the end zone through the air. The big note here is Tay Meadows, injured, the top running back, the all-everything player for the Troy Trojans, didn't go in this one, and Jordan Lovett made it not matter so much, right? He did talk after the game about the chemistry between those 2, and it's like it's all love in the running back room. They're both going through some things, and he 21 carries, 113 yards, just over 5.4 average, but the 2 touchdowns. So just it's like the next man up mentality at Troy is really, truly existing. I love to throw this in the face of the Troy boys if they're out there listening, because none of them were really high on their own team this year. Just very down, just didn't think it was going to happen. And now look what's transpiring over there in the former 2-time champs not too long ago. They're in the running to be up there again this year.
6-2 and undefeated in conference. And, looking ahead, Arkansas State at Troy next week. That's a sneaky good football game. Arkansas State, sitting at 4-4, but I think they're 3-1 in conference. And with Southern Miss on a bye week, Troy wins that football game. They're 5-0 in conference. Now they're making Southern Miss play, try to keep pace with them. So, three teams right now in the driver's seat. There's three or four other teams that are, trying to stay relatively close enough in the rearview mirror. You got it pulled up here. So we talked about looking at it so that I don't know if it's grainy for everyone else, but Marshall Coastal next week. That's a really big football game, right? Because JMU plays on Thursday night at Texas State. If they win that game, they go to 5-0 in the conference. Someone's got to. That Coastal Marshall game is going to be a separator game to see who's challenging them for the East. And then you got Southern Miss, Troy, and Arkansas State all battling out there in the West. And obviously Southern Miss being off, Troy and Arkansas State. Hey, someone's going to say, hey, Southern Miss, you better keep playing good football because we're right here.
Yeah, absolutely. The JMU Texas State game is Tuesday.
Tuesday night,
yeah. So we got an early start. In fact, we won't really preview that one because neither one of us actually prepped to do that. It's hard to always get everything done for this week and go ahead and think about which ones are going to happen before the Wednesday preview show. But that one will happen there.
I can preview this right now. JMU is giving away 5.5 points, and I will be putting money on James Madison at 5.5 points.
It's plus 5.5 for JMU?
No. They're giving away 5.5, but sorry, Artie, please mute your computer. I think JMU wins by a touchdown easy. So to me, and I still have a day job, so betting is not my we're not retiring off that anytime soon. I'm not a cook the book kind of guy, but that seems like good money to me.
So I don't know. Okay, so the reason I'm like hesitant here, right, is JMU against Georgia State. That should have been an obvious shellacking, beatdown, never in doubt type of game. But they only went down to Atlanta and won 14-7.
Yeah, but then you see what they do to ODU, which we just watched ODU. They've got a good defense.
True.
Heck, who knows? Because Texas State can score some points as well. The over-under on that game is 58.5. Maybe the better bet's on the over.
I think the better bet is certainly on the over because I trust both offenses to kind of get it done. But the other part of this that plays a bigger aspect than it does in the pros to me is the travel for college players, right? Like this is the biggest, longest travel, in the sunbelt play for them. I don't think they've gone anywhere farther outside of conference play either, though, right? Like they went to Louisville, but that Weber State came to them. I don't think they really went anywhere too far. I think Texas State is probably their longest road trip of the season because I think they have Washington State at home later this year.
You're talking one time zone away, and with the invention of these things called airplanes, it's not that big of a deal.
No, I know, but like just the packing up, the difference of the week. This is a Tuesday, not a Saturday. Like everything about it is just different and weird and out of the norm. So to me, and it is for Texas State too, to be fair, even though they're playing at home, it's a Tuesday game. No one plays on Tuesdays, right? Like this is just out there in the realm of things you don't do very often. So if I'm going to I can see why the line is only 5.5, I guess is what I'm saying. If I want to put the easiest way to say it out there, right? Like JMU should obviously be favored by at least a touchdown or more if they're playing at home. But with them going on the road to Texas State, I can see why they're trying to put some doubt in the bet, play both sides of the field so far right there in Vegas, right? Like we'll have some people that think Texas State could win at home because they score a lot of points, and we'll have some people who think JMU is the better team and they're going to go on the road and continue doing what they do, which is win. It's just I think it's going to be a good matchup, though. Definitely one to watch.
No, it's a good matchup. I mean, honestly, both Sunbelt matchups that are on midweeks on ESPN this week are good matchups. JMU, Texas State, and Marshall Coastal. They're both really important matchups too. For obvious reasons that we already talked about. So kudos ESPN for having some, blind marquee matchups on the books that panned out to actually be important.
Yeah. So we talked about the race, right, towards the top of both sides. Is there any thought process in your mind that anybody with 2 losses stands any chance at all to make it to the championship game? And obviously more than 2 losses, you're out. But I'm even saying to me right now, any 2-loss team in conference already, you're out. You have no chance to get to the championship game
without having the complete schedule pulled up, you could argue that maybe ODU. ODU is the only team with 2 losses in the conference. So everybody on the West, you've got the 3 teams in the West: USM, Troy, 4-0, Arkansas State, 3-1. Everybody else is 1-3 or 0-3. So you don't have a 2-loss team over there. In the East, you've got Marshall at 2-1 and ODU at 2-2. Could you make an argument that if ODU gets really hot, that they could make a run at it? Yeah, but if it gets to a tied situation, they're going to need JMU to lose 2 games. They've already lost the head-to-head. So no, I don't think you can make that argument.
Yeah. Okay. I figured, because like you said, if ODU had 2 losses but they hadn't played JMU yet, I wouldn't make that statement. Okay, because I think ODU is good enough to overcome it, and anybody could end up with another 2 losses. And if ODU could have the tiebreaker, the fact they've already played and they don't have that tiebreaker against a team who's undefeated, I just don't see anybody, even ODU included, overcoming the 2 losses in conference already. So I think you've got, at best, a 3-team race in the East, but really come this Thursday, that's going to go down to a 2-team race because Coastal and Marshall both in second and third place, if you want to look at it that way right now. One of the two teams will immediately get their second loss in conference. And then, like you said, there's half the teams in the West are completely out of it with 3 losses already. Stand no chance in hell. But Arkansas State, still an outside chance. I don't think it's great with the way Southern Miss and Troy are both playing, but they have a chance to beat at least one. Did you say they play both, or did they just play? Yeah, they would play both teams still at this point.
I'm going to look that up. So let's take the East for a second. So Marshall Coastal, obviously a big game on Thursday night. JMU has Texas State. Let's say JMU wins and Marshall wins. They play each other next week. So that's kind of the East could be decided at that point. So then let's go take a look at the West real quick.
You got somebody getting arrested over there, Marv. I can hear it,
buddy. I swear, I live out in the country, but these damn sirens go off all the time. So Southern Miss,
I think we heard it last week too.
Yeah, it's each morning at about 6:45, and every night at least twice.
Really,
kind of a busy intersection, maybe a mile from here, where apparently people just can't drive very well. But wow. Looking at Southern Miss, Arkansas State is their next game, Texas State, and then Troy last week of the season. So, I mean, it's going to be interesting. It really could be. Like I said, the East could be settled a little quicker than this, but theoretically, you could see the West going down to the absolute last week.
Yeah, that would be great. I think that would be phenomenal. Warren's already going ahead and calling JMU versus Troy or Southern Miss to be playing for the sunbelt title. I'll say this, and this is just from an outside perspective at the fact that we could get a ton of people to tune in, and this would be like just every storyline you could ever want coming to crescendo is Marshall playing Southern Miss for the Sunbelt Conference Championship. It wouldn't get better than that. I'm sorry, JMU fans. It's nothing against anybody, but this is the matchup that we've wanted to see ever since everything that transpired in the offseason. I know the Sun Belt will do everything they can, and the schools will do everything they can to kind of alleviate that. That's just how they're going to play it. It won't be any surprise if it happens. They're not going to try and bring it up. ESPN would, right? They'd talk about it as a storyline. We'll certainly talk about it as a storyline, and you should, right? I mean, you love or hate professional wrestling, but this is exactly the type of storyline that they would literally draw up. And you can't ask for much better than this because it doesn't happen very often in other aspects of the game, right? Like, it's possible that a Power 4 coach would go within his own conference, but it's really, really unlikely. It's more likely that, let's say James Franklin gets hired to go coach now, in the SEC or maybe Big 12, or, he's going to be somewhere else. It's not likely that James Franklin ends up in the Big 10 somewhere else. And this one happened, and then, they turned the season around. I mean, it's just crazy. But again, Troy's up there. James Madison's up there. So It's still up in the air. It's going to be a fun race to the very, very end. Like you said, it could come down to the very last week.
Very well could come down to the last week between USM and Troy. I'm just looking at, the three teams in the West that are upcoming schedule. So Troy has Arkansas State, super important game. Then they go on the road to ODU. That's a pretty difficult game in Norfolk. Then they got Georgia State and Southern Miss. We just kind of went over the Southern Miss remaining schedule. They've got Coastal, Marshall, Troy. Oh, I clicked on the wrong team. Hold on one second. I'm just trying to see how tough it's going to be for the three teams that are still running in the West. So
that are in there.
Arkansas State, Texas State, South Alabama, and Troy. They got three really tough games still sitting in front of them. And then Arkansas State has obviously Troy, Southern Miss, Louisiana, and App. I mean, they've all got tough schedules. So I think the West does come down to the last week where once again the East could be settled 2 weeks from now. If Marshall wins and JMU wins, and then JMU beats Marshall, that's a wrap.
Yeah, no, I agree with you on that East side of things. The one thing I've said just now and Marv agreed with was anybody with 2 losses or more is certainly out of the race. That doesn't mean give up as fans. That doesn't mean stop watching. All we're saying is you don't end up at the very top. What is fun to watch and what is fun to participate in at that point is to play the spoiler, right? Be the reason that JMU doesn't make the championship game. Be the reason Troy or Southern Miss doesn't make the championship game. Take pride in that as a fan, right? Like, okay, didn't have the season we wanted. We're not going bowling. Guess what? We took out a rival from getting to the championship game. Those are why we should still care. Yeah.
As an App State fan, knowing that you're not going to play for the conference championship, you've got JMU and Marshall left in front of you. There's nothing we would like more than to beat JMU or Marshall and us be the reason that they don't get to play in the championship game.
Exactly.
Plus a lot of these teams that might be out of the championship race, man, you're fighting for a better bowl game. Like that's also important as well.
Right. And win all of them, because there occasionally are years where they don't have enough bowl teams and a 5-7 team can get an invite. So don't give up. You're not getting to 6 wins. It's still possible. Again, unlikely, but it could be possible. And we'll see what happens. But
John, off the top of your head, do you know how many bowl tie-ins, guaranteed bowl tie-ins somebody has this year? Is it only 4?
I think it is 4 or 5. Yeah.
Okay.
Because I think they have like those like auxiliary tie-ins. Like if the American doesn't have enough, we get that spot type of thing. So it's hard to say, if you consider that a full one, because if enough teams qualify, we're out. But typically, I think they've really been. I don't remember the last time a sunbelt team qualified with wins and didn't go to one.
Get in, yeah. So I'm just looking here. James Madison, Southern Miss, and Troy already bowl eligible with 6 wins. There's only one team that is mathematically eliminated from making a bowl. That is Georgia State, and then you've got Louisiana and South Alabama at 2 and 6, so they're going to have to win out to even be eligible. And Georgia Southern sitting at 3 and 5. So you got a couple teams that are teetering on being eliminated, and you've got ODU at 5 and 3. They just need to win one more. Marshall, Coastal at 4 and 3. App at 4 and 4. Arkansas State at 4 and 4. So you got a bunch of teams that they win 50% of their remaining games and they're bowl eligible. So, but once again, fight for that eligibility and get in the better bowl game. And hey, man, if you got a chance to knock your rival out of a conference championship game, it's pretty cool too.
Yeah, that's always the fun thing to do, and just enjoy that aspect of it. Enjoy playing spoiler. I know that, like, as kids, and Marv, I'm sure you have that type of thing with baseball too, right? Hey, guys, we're not in the championship game, but go out there and make sure these guys don't get there either type of thing. Like, right? Like, that's what we're going to pride ourselves on. We're still fighting to do something fun and competitive here. So it's a reason we watch the games.
Yeah, 100%. You got to find a storyline somewhere to make it interesting.
Yeah, absolutely. Marv, I think that'll about wrap it up, unless you've got any last news or details that from this weekend that you'd like to share, or maybe predictions, whatever you want to do.
Man, outside the Sunbelt, I don't know if you saw what came across ESPN a little while ago, but another big job has an opening. No. Yeah. So, we talked a couple weeks ago about, hey, don't be surprised if Signettians back at Penn State will the Hoosiers threw some money at them to make sure that didn't happen. Yep. So now you've got Penn State and LSU with openings. So predictions, man, I'll let you and TJ handle that.
Okay. Well, it'll be interesting if Huff continues the role he's on. If someone thinks that within these last 2 years he's done enough to look at a job like LSU, I think that'd be too big of a jump. Not necessarily for him. I just think that'd be too big of a jump for LSU to commit.
Oh, and VTech's open. And VTech has an opening.
That one's not surprising. But yes, that one I could see more of a group of 5 coach ending up at. I think that's kind of the progression, right? Like you go to the ACC, you're successful there, then you get into the Big Ten or the SEC. We saw Napier, skip all that. He waited out for a couple of years, even after getting those types of job offers, to get the Florida job, which we see didn't work out for him necessarily, because we know the Florida job's also open. But it's just interesting to see, with that precedent now being sent, how is that going to transpire, right? I mean, we saw Missouri take Drinkwitz from App, and they've been very successful.
They have.
But I don't know. I don't know.
You think Chesney gets to look at Tech?
I think they very much bring him in for an interview at the very least. I think there's a very realistic shot. But from what I've heard about Virginia Tech, I know I've heard that it's going to change now. But what I heard beforehand was that they didn't fully invest. They weren't really bought in on this NIL transfer portal era yet. And that's why they weren't successful this most recent round. It wasn't just the coach. It was just that he wasn't given the tools to succeed like he should have been. If Chesney feels that way too, then maybe he says, I'll take the interview, because if you throw a bunch of money at me, I that's for my family moving forward. But you also got to think just happiness and are you going to be there long time, right? Like we now know you can take the money, but your job that you were supposed to have for 5 years turns into just a 2-year job, and now you're in this limbo for a couple of years trying to figure out what your next move is. So,
I'll be in Blacksburg on Tuesday. As an App State fan, I will put in a good word for Chesney while I'm there.
There you go. Smart man, Marv. Smart man. But that'll wrap it up for us here on The Wrap. Be sure to tune in on Wednesday night to the preview show and be looking for some basketball coverage. Again, we got recaps on sunbeltsyndicate.com. We'll have scheduled previews, but more importantly, roster reloads. We know there's a lot of roster turnover in football. I think there's even more in basketball. The rosters aren't as big, but the percentage of roster turnover in basketball may be greater than what we saw even in football. So lots to learn and read up on your favorite basketball program, and we'll have it for you this week on sunbeltsyndicate.com. So thanks for tuning in. For Marv and Dom, we'll see you guys next week.
See y'all.
Sunbelt Syndicate.